In this tutorial, you'll learn how to create a payment request associated with a purchase order in ID. Please note that for the training, I have a project manager access profile. It's possible that you have permissions to create payment requests, but with a different user profile, which means that you won't necessarily have all the same menus as those shown on my screen. The payment request is an intermediate step between the purchase order and the invoice. These steps may or may not be required depending on what has been configured in the purchase order. The purpose of the payment request is mainly to document and approve the quantities and progressive settlements by supplier, according to the specifications, and then invoice the amount linked to the percentage of completion. This feature enables external stakeholders, such as suppliers and contractors, if they have the necessary access, to enter their payment request directly into ID. Profiles with specific and restricted access can be assigned to these contacts. Before creating a payment request, you must ensure that the associated purchase order is in approved status and that the date of the payment request is later than the purchase order date. You cannot have more than one payment request in preparation with the waiting status at any time. If you have a request in waiting status, you must approve or cancel it before creating a new payment request. In ID, we access the payment request from the execution menu, and you can see the list of existing payment requests. To create a new one, click on the Create button. The project is already selected. Select the supplier from the list of suppliers for whom a purchase order has been created. Then select the purchase order from the list of approved purchase order for the selected supplier. And enter the date on which the progress report was drawn up. Selecting Save and Open will automatically open the payment request. As long as the payment request has not been approved, you can add a reference number, just here. And you can change the date if required. The contractual holdback defined in the purchase order will automatically be applied here. Since there was no contractual holdback defined in our purchase order, we can do it manually right here. So we can select a percentage here. Or if you prefer, you can enter a fixed amount. When the amount will be entered in the bottom section that we'll see later, the holdback amount will be calculated and displayed just right here. If one or more payment requests have already been generated for the same purchase order, the received amount shows the amount already included on other approved payment requests. We will return to this section once we have entered the amount associated with the specific request. You can attach documents or URL links related to this payment request. And if required, you can also enter a note just right here. In the section From Purchase Order, the breakdown of settlement is made according to the budget. If this is the first payment request linked to this purchase order, all fields will be set to 0. The received amount and percentage display the total amount of previously approved payment requests, as well as the percentage of these payment requests in relation to the total purchase order amount. Quantity could be selected if more meaningful than percentage. There are 6 ways of entering information in the payment request for each purchase order item. First, the received percentage is the overall percentage of progress. So the percentage of existing payment requests must be taken into account. So when the cumulative percentage is 100%, the line turns green. So let's add here another 10% more to what was already there. You will see that everything else is calculated. You can also enter the received quantity, like by changing percentage for quantity here. So this would be the total quantity completed to date, taking into account the quantity of existing payment requests. The amount received is the total amount of work completed to date by item. The percent differential is the progress of the current payment request in percentage. Let's add to this one here. Let's add another 10%. And as for the receive column, if you prefer, you can change the percentage for quantity. And finally, the amount differential is the amount of this specific request. So let's say here we're going to enter an amount, and you'll see that the percentage will be calculated automatically. By entering one of these 6 items of information, the others are automatically calculated, as are the amount in the synthesis section at the top of the page and the amount of holdback if a percentage has been entered. So let's go back to the top of the page. So the received amount is the total amount of work to date, including this present payment request. The amount differential is the amount of this current payment request, and the payable amount is the amount of the current request from which the contractual holdback has been taken. This allows you to check the amount to be invoiced. In the purchase order items, you can also see information related to previous requests. So going at the bottom, we have the ordered amount, which is the total amount of initial purchase order by item. The amount already received is the cumulative amount of previous payment requests by item again. And the amount charged, for now it's all zero. This is the amount of this purchase order that has already been invoiced. So that means that nothing for this purchase order has already been invoiced. You can associate document for each item of the request in addition to the document that can be added at the top of the page relating of the request. So in the 3-dot menu on the left hand side, just click on it and we can click add document. It could be document or URL. Click here to add document. And I select the document I want to attach here. Then I click save. When a document is added, a paperclip icon appears on the line and you can click on it to save the document in your downloads. You can also add comment. Again, with the 3-dot menu, we have comment history here. That's where you can add a comment. And we click add. You can see the history by clicking on comment history right here. The history is displayed here. And an icon will be added to the line to indicate that a comment has been added. By clicking on the small arrow just here, you can hide 100% completed items to lighten the page content. If billable contractual changes have been attached to the purchase order, the section from contractual change will be available, but we'll cover this topic in the next video. When all the elements of the payment request have been entered, the request can be sent for approval. The approval chain has been configured at purchase order level where applicable. Depending on the user's profile, when the Send for Approval button is clicked, a line indicating approval status and approvers may be displayed. For example, if contractors have access to create the payment request themselves, the approval information will not be visible for these users. If no approval chain is configured and your profile allows it, you can approve the payment request directly. This concludes this training video. I invite you to consult the various wiki articles, which will also help you to understand the different elements associated with the payment request, especially the impact of contractual changes on the payment request, which will be discussed in the next module, and the comment history for payment requests. We'll be back in the next video to learn how to associate a contractual change with a payment request.